Good afternoon to all of our ISM members, our chapter partners, and guests to our program today. This series is sponsored by ISM New Jersey, and I'm Kathy Perna, the Executive Director, and I'll be behind the scenes. Today, we have a great program today on Leadership Fulfilled, 5 strategies to fill up your pipeline of Ready Now leaders with our special guests, Lauren LeMunyan. I didn't even ask you how to pronounce your last name. I'm so sorry.
It's like Paul Bunyan and filet mignon.
LeMunyan. I'm sorry, LeMunyan. Who was the founder and CEO of Spitfire Coach, who was also our keynote speaker for our Women in Leadership Conference last October. And I'll tell you, amazing. The Spitfire Coach was born out of the need to create safe and supportive spaces for incoming and existing leaders to harness their unique voice, develop necessary skills, and constantly changing environments and build leadership pipelines for the future. As a master certified coach with more than 3,000 certified hours, Lauren has worked with hundreds of clients in tech, design, healthcare, nonprofits, and financial services. Lauren also is the Innovative Mindset Facilitator for Capital One's Catapult program. She is a certified coach for the 4 stages of psychological safety, an IPEC trained professional coach, an ICF mentor coach, an MBTI certified practitioner, a certified resentment release master practitioner, and a graduate of Rutgers University. So she is actually from New Jersey. Just a reminder, we want to make this an interactive program, so please put items in the chat, any questions, any comments. And at this point, I'm going to turn the stage over to Lauren.
Thanks so much, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be here virtually, and I hope to see some faces. If you feel like turning your camera on, awesome. Otherwise, it's just like I'm performing to a mirror, which I'm used to as a kid. Anybody else do that? Or I'm the only weirdo here. Yeah. So I would love to know where you all are listening from. I know Jim is from Morristown, New Jersey. So if you want to just put that in the chat. We got any more New Jerseyans? I don't live there anymore, unfortunately. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I see Jupiter, Florida. Awesome. Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's see. Anybody in Denver? Raleigh, Essex, New Jersey. Okay. Rochester, New York. So we got the Eastern Seaboard. So we got some snow, we got some sunshine, we got the whole thing. I got some snow in the backyard. So before we get started, now that we know how the chat feature works, I would love to know from you, when you think about your pipeline of ready now leaders, meaning that they're ready to take things on, what percentage do you think that your pipeline is filled right now? So 0 to 100%. What would you say your ready now leadership pipeline is filled right now? Feel free to use the chat. %, 30%, 75%, 70%, 60%. Wait for what percentage do you think your pipeline is filled right now with ready now leaders? So we've got a range right now from 30 to 75%. Okay. So for today, 75%. All right, there we go. Is there such thing as 100%? Well, Walter, I'm going to tell you there absolutely is, because my goal for today is to give you the strategies that won't just get you to 100%, but will have overflow. You're going to have so many leaders that you're like, how do we create more opportunities for them? So yes, you can get a perfect score in this. You can strive for 100%. And right next to that score, so we have where we're starting from. And I would love for you to think about, where do you want to aim that percentage of ready now leaders for your needs in the future and beyond? So we're going to get rocking and rolling. And if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat, and Kathy's going to help me out because when I start teaching, I just go. So here we go. So this is about me. You already saw all the, you heard about it from Kathy's bio. I'm not going to go over it again, but I got a lot of certifications. I love to layer things together to make it approachable, to make it consumable and applicable in everyday life. And I talk with my hands a lot. This is the Jersey part coming out. You guys know. So today, what we're covering is the current situation for talent, retention, and development. They all go hand in hand. They are all interlinked. And we need to know where we are right now so that we know what we need to do moving forward. We're also going to talk about the 4 missteps that companies are making in their leadership development. We have seen 4. There are more than 4, but these are 4 that you can start to recognize. And if you do see them, make note of it. This is not a judgment. This is more of an observation, because when we know better, we do better. We're then going to talk about the 10 most needed future leadership skills. So this is for 2030 and beyond. And if we think about 10 years ago, in 2013, who would have thought we would all have to be masters in Zoom, in virtual delivery, in Slack, in Google Docs, right? So all of these skills are going to be changing moving forward, and they're not what you think unless you've been reading up on it. And we'll see if you get any of them if you're thinking about them in that way. And then I'm going to leave you with 5 key strategies that you can start examining and putting into action to build and nourish and nurture your leadership pipeline. Because it's not just we're going to stick people in this and then our problem is solved. This is a living organism that we have to feed, we have to sort out, we have to take care of and assess and be aware of things and changes. All right, so we ready to go? Can we get some thumbs up? Do you guys know how to do the thumbs up? Awesome. I see it. Thanks, Scott. Cool. So I want you to imagine that world. You know, we started with the percentage that our leadership was filled up. Maybe it was 30%, maybe it was 60%, maybe it was 75%. And I want you to imagine that every single slot that needed to be filled by leaders in your organization was filled. Imagine that 100%. Yes, it is possible. And just breathe into it. Imagine that every slot is filled. Everyone is doing what they need to do. They are equipped in the way that they need to be equipped. And what is different for you, for the people you work with, for your customers and clients? How's it different? Any words that we want to think about, that we want to aim towards? What's the world you want to imagine with your leadership? You can type it into the chat. For me, it's about being easy, being in flow, being productive. What words come up that you want to aim towards? Cohesive, love it. All right, maybe engagement, awesome. Empowering, there you go. So we can start to feel that way. This is where we're setting our intentions for our leadership development. So cohesive, engagement, empowering. Okay, so we define ready now leaders as people who have the ability to take on a new role in the immediate future. So you saw in the description for this webinar today, tag your it. A lot of us, when we became leaders, when we became managers, it felt that way. It was like duck, duck, goose. Like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, go. But most of us were not really prepared for it. So imagine if you were in that spot, maybe you were a ready now leader. You're like, I'm ready, put me in, coach, I'm ready to play. And you were able to then perform well and drive the business forward because you were aligning your actions, your intentions to the overall business goals. And you were able to then assess and minimize your skill gaps. These are things that we want to look for when we're looking at the pipeline, when we're moving the pipeline forward. And this person's also super efficient and effective. These aren't people that you're necessarily having to hold their hand and tell them exactly what to do. And what we're seeing with the people that we work with the leaders and the new managers that we're working with, is they are second guessing themselves and questioning, am I in the right spot? Did they pick the right person? What if I screw up? And so what ends up happening is they become inefficient and ineffective when we need them in a ready now, ready to go spot. Anything sound familiar here? Probably. So we want to focus not just on people who have the capability, but have the mindset to be ready to go now. because life is changing fast. So here's the current situation. We need to kind of see where we are so that we can assess what needs are needed to move forward. So by the end of December of 2022, there were 11 million job openings in the US. And that was 5 million more than were unemployed in the US. So we have a talent gap. We have lots of space. Is there anybody that has all of their seats filled, no job openings at their organization? Because lots of people have been quitting. This isn't just about the Great Resignation. I mean, people like to have these grand labels on things, but there has been a massive shift in people leaving the workforce to start their own jobs, or they're opting out. So there was a quit increase of 4.35 million. That is a lot of people. And because so many people were leaving, our turnover was skyrocketing. People were not staying at companies, and it shot up to 52.8%. That was the turnover rate. The rule of thumb, you want to be aiming for 10%. 10%. Turnover is not necessarily a bad thing. If it's not a good fit, if people need to kind of move on, but when people are leaving at 5 times the rate of what is healthy, that ends up getting felt on the people who are staying. It ends up getting felt on managers trying to figure out where to move people, and they're holding on to the emotional baggage. So it's not just about the cost to replace people, which when you're looking at senior leaders is 2.5 times their salary. And for someone who's more junior, it's about 50%. But you also have the emotional labor and the physical labor of doing the work that then adds on and actually leads to the domino effect of more people leaving. So this is something to take into consideration, that this is still happening, even though we have all of these openings, because people are like, well, you know, people should just want jobs. They should be happy they have a job. And this is what happens when we have the recession feelings. I've seen it happen in my tech clients. All of the work that they have done to create these amazingly psychologically safe environments have been retracted into this mentality of you should be happy you have a job. And so they're not focusing necessarily on developing the talent, which is the opportunity in the long game for you all, where you can snag the talent, where you can start cultivating or continue cultivating the talent internally to fill up that pipeline so that you are not left in this lurch of multiple openings. And if you need me to reiterate or expand on any of these, I'm happy to do that. So here's the talent gap. By 2030, we are looking at a talent and skill gap in the US that will look like $8.5 trillion in losses. So if there aren't enough people to do the job, there's opportunity lost, there is workload loss, there's productivity lost. And 87% of employers are reporting having trouble finding talent as a result of the skill gap. So there might be people looking for jobs, but the talent, the expertise, the skill, the experience is not there to meet the needs, which is why we need to really fill up our existing pipeline. Has the message been received of the importance of this? Yes? Can I get a received in the chat? Well received. Okay. Yes. So this whole idea of we don't have time to train people, we don't have the budget to develop people. I would say the opposite is true. You can't afford to not develop your people. You don't have the time to not train up the people, because who else is going to do the work? The people who remain. And then we've got the domino effect. So let's stop the domino effect and start building that really firm foundation to build people up. And let everyone, my whole thing, my whole quest in doing this work is that people see their jobs, their employers, their day-to-day, their 9 to 5 as a space where they can enjoy coming back to, that they look forward to Mondays, that they get to be creative agents of positive change. And this is where I think we can start planting seeds for awesomeness for that to happen. So here's the current situation. I know I'm kind of giving you like the doom and gloom, but I promise like we're going to build up and it's going to be amazing. So we know what the situation is for talent and retention and the talent gap. Here's what's happening with managers and training. First and foremost, 70% of an employee's experience is connected to their immediate manager. You can think of the most amazing manager you've had, and you're like, I had a great time. I looked forward to Mondays. I couldn't wait to work with that person. And you might have had the flip side, which is, oh my God, that manager was the worst. I couldn't stand having meetings with them. Like every project felt like, such a burden, or, they threw me under the bus. So 70% of your experience, you're spending 40 hours a week. Most of us are probably spending more. All of that time is impacted by one person. So imagine if that person does not know what they're doing or has a negative example that they've received. It becomes that trickle down and trickle out effect. And we want to counter that with getting those positively equipped skills in place for those managers to have a positive impact. And what we're seeing, what's been put out there, is 60% of managers never receive training when they transition. So you remember tag you're it? That tag does not necessarily mean that you're going to get trained. In fact, it's the assumption of, hey, you got what it takes, you'll figure it out. I became a manager when I was 22 years old. I became an executive director, and I was really good at faking it until I made it. And so because of that, nobody really paid attention to what I was doing. Meanwhile, I was freaking out and having panic attacks and not sleeping because I was convinced that someone was going to find me out, or I was going to do the wrong thing, or I was going to say the wrong thing. So that type of stress did not equip me to make big picture decisions. And it didn't equip me to ask for help. So we have to think of it through the lens of, people are not going to ask for the training. We have to create the systems for them to enter into so that they can be a part of the positive change. They can raise their hand and say, yeah, I want to be a part of this existing program, versus saying, I need to work on these 5 things. Because in a lot of organizational culture, by identifying your weakness, you have now put a target on yourself. And I know we don't think that. We should say, well, people should be able to ask for help. But think about how your culture in your company, in your team, responds to that. Are people safe raising their hand and saying, I want to be trained? Or are they going to be kind of either pushed to the side, told to figure it out, or ignored? That's what we call learner safety. That's in the 4 stages of psychological safety. So these are things to think about, because they all go into play with your learning culture. So we could then go down the list from the 60% that never were trained. 50% of managers were rated as ineffective. So if half of the managers out there are ineffective and 70% of employees' experience are connected to the managers, look at what's happening. So this is what we need to focus on. We need to make sure that people have the ability to be supported and to have opportunities, because people want to be able to reach their full potential. I know there's a whole thing about quiet quitting and people checking out. You will always have some of that. This is for your high potentials, which is where your opportunity is. Your ready now leaders in your green zone. We have a red, yellow, and green zone. Red zone, they're never going to adapt to it. Yellow needs more time, and green is ready to go. That 74% of people that want to reach their full potential and don't is your opportunity. And I'm sure you can look around the people that you're interacting with, that you're working with, that need to have that potential expressed. They need to have the support and the trajectory in order to fulfill it. Are you tracking with what I'm saying? Are we receiving? Hit it in the chat. Received, and then we'll move on. Received. Thanks, Tammy. Awesome. Yeah. So this is the stage. I don't feel like I need to delve into that. We got, like, the numbers make sense, the money and the connection there. I got another one to throw in that I got last week from a major conference of Fortune 500 companies. There were 250 companies represented at this conference, and 94% of them that were surveyed said that team development was their highest level priority when it came to full-on professional development. But they saw what they were currently doing as not working. And we're going to talk about those missteps, because that's where the opportunity is. You might already have development, but there are things that need to be shifted and tweaked in order to actually be effective. Okay, so here we go. Don't step on the banana. Bananas are actually bad luck on boats. Don't bring them on boats either. So here's the first one. Professional development is only reserved for the C-suite. It's only for the all-stars. So I do a lot of executive coaching, And one of our rules is that we make it accessible to all. So we will have programming available for managers, for C-suite, and for what we call independent contributors. So not everyone will get the same delivery, but they will have opportunity to learn throughout. So if you are currently only making professional development, so trainings, coaching, budgetary decisions for that, this is something to examine. How do we open this up to more people? And when I say more people, think about first, high potentials, people who have an ambition, people who have the energy, who are aligned with what you're doing as a company, because this is what we call centers of influence. This is where when they learn a concept and they embed it, they trickle it out. Okay, so this is misstep number one. Misstep number two. We remember when computers used to look like this, and if you're still working with one, I'm so sorry. But this is basically a visual representation of the content that's out there. It's generic and it's outdated. I swear, if I read another leadership book that comes from this very top-down hierarchical view of here's how you become the best leader. And if you've ever read the book Radical Candor, I am so anti this book because what it does is it misses key components around trust, around psychological safety, around preferences, around communication and understanding. These books of advice, of expert advice, are one directional. It comes from this situation of I have the power as the leader and I'm going to tell you what to do. And this is just how it's going to be. So if you are reinstilling those messages, we need to look at them of what is the culture, those empowering, cohesive teams that we want, those pipelines of future leaders. What do we want them to learn about our current situation, about our future vision, about our goals, about our values as an organization? And a lot of the things that are out there and getting repurposed are missing the mark big time. I actually had a client who took a women in leadership course, and she was told that if she was in a board meeting and she got interrupted, to keep speaking. This was the advice. So she did it. And you know what happened? She got shushed by the CEO. So not all advice is good advice. Not all teachings are meant to work in every situation. And so we have to create content that is adaptable and flexible based on situations, the audience, and the person that is learning it. It has to be customized to work for the individual and have multiple skill sets built on it so that they have a toolkit rather than one and done approaches. Okay. The third is the duct tape approach. So this is when we kind of look at things and piece them together. You might have multiple divisions and companies. Multiple divisions and departments in your company. And you might have a budget for professional development. So Jim's over here. He's found this great coach, this great trainer. He's doing his thing. Tammy's over here and she's like, I really want to do this thing. Joe's over here and he's doing this thing. And Kathy's over here doing this thing. And what ends up happening is we have these little pods of learning, but it's not getting shared. It's not a cohesive approach. We hope the duct tape will connect it. We hope that people will start applying it. But the reality is what is learned and taught in one place does not spread out. And so we like to think of things as a learning ecosystem. So again, how do we focus on centers of influence, equip them with the knowledge to share out, to create that learning culture change that really just becomes the everyday way that everyone is? If it is not cohesive, if it is not aligned and consistent, it creates friction because you might be using radical candor over here and having these very blunt conversations. And you might be practicing psychological safety and wondering, how the heck did we both get funding? Because we are on different planets right now. So in order for this to work and be effective, it needs to be cohesive. It needs to be a shared decision among decision makers, among directors and managers and everybody who is working with teams so that this becomes the second language of the organization. Obviously, English is probably everyone's first language. If you're in Jersey, sarcasm might be the first one. So we'll see. But you've got to make sure that everyone's on the same page, because otherwise we're all speaking different languages in leadership. And we're like, whoa, this doesn't work. Even giving and receiving feedback could come off differently. Okay, this is the fourth misstep. And this is probably the most common one that I've seen, is that usually when companies come to us, they're like, I got this problem. We need a workshop on communication because our teams don't communicate. And I'm like, okay, so I could come in, spend a day with your managers, do a workshop, but is it really going to magic wand the situation? Probably not, because the reality is most people can retain about 4 to 7 pieces of information. So if we're lucky, we're getting 4 to 7. But what happens as soon as they leave that workshop? They're probably forgetting it. They're going back to their busy day. They're not practicing it. So they might remember, oh, I should use this thing. Oh, I've got this workbook. I can probably go look at it. So if it's not part of this journey of learning, if it's not being reinforced with kind of these ecosystems of learning, it gets forgotten because it's seen as put the Band-Aid on it, fix the problem, and move on. And there has been a recent shift with major organizations that get it, of changing the vision from performance management or performance improvement to talent optimization. The difference is that performance management looks at mistakes that have been made in the past, and it just looks at the errors and the missteps of the individual, versus how we're moving forward together in an aligned way to move things to a shared goal and vision. So if you're going to invest in your talent optimization, in your professional development, you need to see things on a learning journey. Because if you don't, you're going to waste all of that. I don't know how much money is lost in a day with every manager sitting there learning and then not applying.
And Lauren, it looks
Yes.
like Tammy has a hand up.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Yes, this is kind of jumping back to what you were talking about with the duct tape approach. And I'm just wondering because, excuse me, my company, we're an international nonprofit, and we handle we do government funded projects. But our HR team has implemented a management coaching opportunity, I guess is what they call it. Mm-hmm. So what they did was, we've got about 8 different coaches that the employees can choose from and request to have some coaching sessions. And they chose about 8 different coaches, thinking, that way they can cater to different coaching styles and let people choose. But I don't think it was reviewed as to whether all these coaches are like their style, and like, is that a good idea or a bad idea? Like, because I'm now, based on what you're saying, I'm like, oh wow, we could have a plethora of different versions of talent building out there.
Yeah, that is an amazing question, and something that we've examined internally in my organization, because when I got started, I was one of those like coaching cohorts that you could select. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what's uniform about this? Like, how are we creating these opportunities? And so it's not that it's a good idea or a bad idea. I think there's an opportunity of how do we get everybody on the same page? Because what we noticed is that if there isn't kind of that shared learning opportunity, it becomes an individual approach to leadership. And then those coaching sessions become almost like venting sessions and problem solving, but that's not getting shared out. So we do year-long leadership cohorts where we do hour-long learning and learning pods, and then they select coaches to kind of dig deeper, and they're more action-oriented. So I think coaching's great. Obviously, I'm a coach. I'm biased. I think there's an additional, where does the information get shared?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? You can raise your hand. Kathy, you're doing an amazing job. Thank you. Okay, so let's just go over the top leadership skills. So we're in 2023. I can't believe we're already in March. Q4 is wrapping up rapidly. But I want us to think even further along in the future, because just as Tammy was noticing, like how do we aim towards the same goal here? Like, how do we know what the skills are that our leaders and managers need? And so this will kind of give you a template to analyze on a scale like of 1 to 10, where would we rate all of our managers or ourselves? And how do we know what we need to work on? So this is just more of kind of like a baseline assessment that you can build into. So we're going to go through the 10. So this is the first one, which is to blend and balance. So this is blending and balancing the human side with tech. Tech is not going anywhere. AI is floating all around us, but tech will never replace the human side. So relationship building. So that's why our kind of like sub skill here is how do we build and maintain trust-based relationships? And so if you're working in a group or an organization where you have a lot of like technical thinkers, this is one of those opportunities to go even beyond empathy. This is where we teach compassion. How do we flip to the other person and create action based on how we see other people's perspective? Number 2, forward thinking. This isn't about just looking to 2030 or looking at a date on the calendar, but thinking about what are the multiple scenarios that can play out and how do I consider second and third order thinking, meaning what are the cause and effects of this decision? So this is not to freak you out or make you anxious, but to think really comprehensively of if we are to decide on this project, what are the impacts on our team? What are the impacts on the skill set needed? What are the impacts on our clients? What would be needed? So really we're able to kind of draft it out in our head, put it on paper, and give kind of like an option A, B, and C, and look at the pros and cons. This is a big one because most people probably did not see, okay, in the next 3 years from 2020 to 2023, that we would have experienced what we did. There were some people who did, but the ones that were able to think about scenarios and decision and how they responded were able to really kind of ebb and flow with the changes. This next one is about being an expert and explorer. So looking at it through a lens of curiosity. So as change comes up, as uncertainty comes up, we're looking at it, how might that impact things? I'm curious what this looks like versus saying, this is change, it's scary. We've always done it this way. We need to stop. The explorer knows where their center point is. It knows where its base camp is, but it will go out and look at different options and come back with intel to provide to their team and decision makers so that you know what's out there, you know what can be seen. And you can also say, well, I don't know what's beyond here, but we could go look, or we could move our camp further out. So this is making change into something that could be fun. And I know that a lot of change has not felt fun, but imagine if it could. This is a very necessary skill. And I say this with like an asterisk next to it. So the compassionate coach. When you are a manager, you use coaching skills. What Tammy was referring to is someone who is a coach, and I hope that they're certified through ICF. You should not be the coach of a person that you manage or have a direct report to, because there are lines that get blurred. In the same way that you should not mentor the people that report to you. They are entrusting you with their future, and you as a mentor are kind of giving your experiences, which may or may not work for them. So we want to make sure that we have very clear boundaries. Now, as a compassionate coach, as a manager, you can focus on seeing their unique needs and talents of each team member. You can help to cultivate that by recognizing this is the thing about you that I want to see more of. So it's coaching more of like the sideline coach at a sporting event versus being a coach where you're really helping them like uncover their limiting beliefs and blocks and things like that. There's a lot of vulnerability that goes into that unless you are trained and have those very clear roles and boundaries, it can get really messy. And that's why I want to just like asterisk the crap out of it, because a lot of people overstep and it creates more damage. Does anybody want any clarification on that? Because that's usually a sticky point of like when people say, well, I'm coaching my team. I said, great, you're using coaching skills. You are not the coach of your team members. Okay, I can go back to any of these too. All right, the next one is about being a master communicator. So you need to learn and know how to cut through that noise. So there is a lot of distraction. Like we're scrolling through our day, clicking through, we've got bing, bada, bing, bing, bing. You need to know how to clearly and succinctly get your message across. This is where having micro conversations is key. So let's make it like, I want to create a movement of let's do away with 2-hour meetings. Let's even do away with hour-long meetings. If it can be expressed in an email in 3 bullets, let's do it. But I think we don't clearly know why we're meeting. And so we end up like just droning on and on and on. So I want you to think about, how do I express my idea in 7 words or less in this subject line? And how do I create 3 bullet points of what I'm looking to accomplish? If you are verbose, this is going to be very challenging, which means that it's an amazing skill to develop. This is what is going to be needed now and going forward. And it is absolutely a skill that can be developed. Okay, leading from within. This is about the leader who rolls up their sleeves to understand what's happening. And I can't tell you how many companies I've seen that create so much separation between the C-suite and the independent contributors. They have no idea how the work gets done. So they're making all of these decisions that are impacting this group of people, and they're not getting the feedback and information. And if they do, they're not taking it into consideration. So in order to be that future leader that has amazing positive impact, it's not about doing the work all the time, but about having those moments where you get in there to understand what's most efficient. How is this working? How have people tweaked it? So when you have empathy and understanding, you can then help in decisions that help people versus harm them. Tech curiosity. So this is thinking about being an inner teenager. So like when I was a teenager, we got cell phones, like we finally had them and they didn't cost like $4.99 a minute. It was amazing. So like text messaging, we weren't even there yet. We were probably in, let's see, I was out of college when I got the iPod. But now everything is rapidly changing. So think about like the difference between yourself as a teenager and your parent of like, what is this newfangled technology? I don't want this. How do I set up this answering machine? So think about when you were a teenager, how fast and how exciting it was. Yeah, it's going to be a little challenging, but having the curiosity of how do I figure this out? How do I learn this? Do I watch a YouTube video? Do I ask my kid to help me? I'm learning all the new Gen Z lingo. It's great. I'm not going to, no, I don't even know any that I could say that are appropriate. But think about your inner teenager and how you can apply that with new technology. You got ChatGPT coming up. You got all these apps that are there to make your life easier. And the faster that we can adopt them, the better it is. So here is an acronym that I don't have on a slide, but I'm going to tell you. When you look at technology, adapting it in, the acronym is RIDE. So it's when it's rare, when it's, I'm not going to actually say that because I can't even remember it. And I'm going to misquote something, but it's something from Accenture. So basically, if it's too expensive for you to do it, if it's too dangerous, and I think if it's, I can't remember what the I is, it's rare and it's, oh, I'm going to find out and I'll let you know. But basically try it out. But if it's too cumbersome, then delegate it out, but try it first. Okay. Now we want to be like chameleons. We want to be adaptive and responsive. So this is about having an awareness in how we think that allows us to experiment and change course. So this is almost like bringing your inner scientist out of how do we see what works, what factors are working, what styles we can apply in leadership, how we project manage, how we communicate, you know, what gives us the best yes, the easiest way to yes when we're trying to sell something, whether it's an idea or a contract. So looking for those factors versus a bulk idea allows us to pull different levers. Okay, and emotional intelligence, like if you haven't heard of this term, there are tons of books, tons of video. It is the way that we connect with people. It gets us out of our own way. It allows us to have awareness and compassion. It's the human connection, like we said before. This is what is going to be so needed for leaders across the board. And if you are not focusing on emotional intelligence and how to get more EQ, there are lots of resources. We teach a course on it. this is the way that you can get in the head of other people and get to yes and understanding so much easier, create less friction. And then this is about embracing global citizenship. We are able to talk to people around the world at any time. We have asynchronous communication. We have so many different types of people who have so many different experiences. And it's in those differences that allows us to see different perspectives. It allows us to fill in those gaps and blind spots. So you are most likely, if you're not already, leading or working with far-reaching teams. You might have teams across the globe. May have teams in different time zones. And so it's looking through things outside of a US perspective, but getting curious about what's it like where you live? Like, what are some things that you do outside of work? How do you approach these things? So it's that curiosity that allows us to understand and celebrate and embrace diversity versus being stuck in our box of this is my viewpoint and this is how things always are. Okay, we are moving and grooving. We've got 20 minutes left. I'm going to move through these key strategies. But first, I want to just pause and see, were there any questions about what we just covered with those 10 future leadership skills or any of the missteps?
None in the chat right now, but if anybody has a question, please put in the chat or raise your hand.
I'm also curious, did any of those future skills surprise you? Or is it something you want to pay attention to more of? And I can go back through if you want. No? Okay. All right. So we'll go through the strategies. I've got them all listed here because we're going to do a little gabbing. I've been referencing this throughout, and I hope that it feels redundant because this is really what we need to sink in and take away. If you want your leadership pipeline to be filled up, overflowing, it first starts with establishing your learning journey framework. What does that mean? It means when someone comes through your organization, wherever they are starting from in a position, what are those key milestones, those key skills that they need to absorb in order to get to the next level? And beyond that, how do they need to show up? So it's not just about, I know the mechanics of giving and receiving feedback, but I also embody what it is. And so the more specific that you can get in those qualities, and you can use those 10 future skills because they're actually like qualities as well, you will be able to say, okay, this is someone who is like almost there. We need to see some examples where they are being a master communicator. When you have specific benchmarks, milestones, you can actually put people on a journey map in their own leadership development. So they are going through coaching, they're going through trainings, they're going and shadowing, they're getting a mentor, they have sponsorship from a leader in your organization, they're going out and networking. So they're actually building up their case of I'm ready. So it's not just about you or the decision maker saying you're ready to be a leader. They're saying, look at what I've been doing. So they're building their confidence and they're also proving their case. So this is going to look different for people. The thing that will look similar are the values of the organization, the goals of the organization, and maybe they're different for each department. And what will be kind of the framework and the baseline are those 10 key strategies, those 10 key values, in addition to other things. So I'm sure that you can look around at a high potential manager who, when they stepped in, you're like, yeah, that person's got it. And think about, well, how did you know they had it? How did you know that they were on point with certain things? And that can help create a framework. And we actually build frameworks for our clients too. So happy to help you with that. The other piece of this is developing opt-in programs and opportunities for high potentials. What we have seen a lot is people get tapped and assigned and commanded to do things. And if you want to kill engagement, that's how you do it. The opportunity is to say, we have this amazing investment that we are putting in as an organization. We see this as a primer for people who want to take on management and higher level opportunities. If you would like to be a part of it, let your manager know, let your supervisor know, or you can fill out this application. We get 100% completion with opt-in programs. So typically our cohorts are 8 to 12 people. Those 8 to 12 people show up all the time, participate, get through it, and they are so excited to share out because it is seen as an investment. If you are assigned to do it, if you are told to do it, it feels like we're back in school. And we're dealing with high potentials, we're dealing with adults. So we need to empower people to have the agency to do it on their own and obviously supported. We also absolutely want to embed internal coaching into this. We have seen more companies investing in training internal coaches, and we set up programs for people where you get trained to be an ICF accredited coach, and in exchange, you commit to coaching your colleagues, not the people you manage, your colleagues throughout the year. What this does is it doesn't just give you the coaching skills, but it creates that you understand my environment, you get it, you're part of the culture and organization. And what Tammy was referring to, this remedies that issue because it's a cohesive understanding of the coaching skills, the organization values, the culture, all of those things come together. And the fourth part of this is all about supporting ecosystems of trust. So learning pods, the people who are going through each of the trainings, how are they meeting inside and outside? So having breakouts, having weekly accountability meetings, we call those WAMs. This is where self-managed accountability comes in, because when you are meeting with your colleagues, you're sharing, here's what I'm working on, here's what's working, here's what's not. You then are building resources and more trust with the people who are in there with you. So you then have a support system, a safety net of, I don't really understand this, who do I go talk to? Well, it's not, I don't need to talk to my coach, but like, hey, what worked for you? So you're creating those lines of understanding and also resources and problem solving for everyday life. And when that happens, then you can actually talk about it to other people, which is the next point, which is about evangelizing it. So many organizations have leadership development and nobody talks about it. It's like, yeah, we do this thing, it's cool. But imagine what would happen if you were able to tell the story, if your colleagues were telling the story of, hey, I learned this really cool tool and I learned how to do this. And we're like building, really amazing pipelines of future leaders. And here are the things that they learn how to do. And here's how we do it. It's about amplifying the storytelling, about amplifying the message. Because if it's sitting in the closet, nobody knows about it. So it's time to share, to celebrate, to shout it from the rooftops. We're super excited. So these are the 5. I'm curious, is anybody doing all 5? Is anybody doing more than 2 right now? This is your opportunity to shout it from the rooftop. Is anybody doing any of these? We're doing 2. Thomas, if you wouldn't mind unmuting, which 2 are you doing?
We're pretty much doing 4 and 5.
Okay. What does it look like with 4 and 5?
Oh, see, now you have me on the spot to elaborate that. And then Chatty Cathy, you probably don't want me to. It's more of a culture, from our executive level. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so that's for 5. So beyond the executives, how does it get out to, let's say, a middle manager and how they can participate?
Pretty much, it's department wide. That a perfect example is right now we're on an ISM training, and that was one of the things when I started here at the district that was promoted, is to get people involved with ISM to learn more and expand their knowledge.
Awesome. Cool. So we're doing the trainings. How about after the trainings? How does the culture support the future learning?
Just simple as it's ongoing. You know, we're always looking for people to learn more and expand their knowledge base.
Cool. So one thing to consider to add on are learning showcases. So when people go through a training, they have kind of a shared, you might be doing this already, but having a shared space of we learn, my big takeaways were these 3 things, and here's how I'm applying it. So it's a way of like, how do you take your learning nuggets and then put it out there? Because you might be gravitating towards one topic and someone else may be like, oh, I didn't even get that from that. I got this. So it's a way of like continuing the conversation beyond the training. Tammy, you have a professional development culture. What is how would you describe your professional development culture?
We actually, we have our annual review and assessment period, and it's built into that program. So we have to have a professional development goal each year. And then we, at the end of the year, we assess how we did against that goal.
Gotcha. If you could shift anything, if you had your own magic wand, and I know I said that this was one of the missteps, if you had your own magic wand approach to the professional development culture, what's one thing you would change?
Well, again, I think it's the way it is done. I don't know, it's twofold to me. So it's a very individualized thing. So I don't feel like there's a lot of cohesiveness that goes with it. I develop my own goal. I work to make sure I meet that goal. But it's really only a goal that's more advantageous to my immediate work team, more so than company-wide.
Yeah. We actually did a forum a couple months ago about productivity and how this hybrid approach or remote work approach has skyrocketed individual productivity, but it has completely destroyed cross-functional team collaboration. And so what I'm hearing is like, yeah, when I have a goal, I go and do it. It's great. And if I was able to share this out or have this experience with others, it would probably support you more.
Correct.
Okay. Amazing takeaway. And I think a lot of us were like, yeah, we have this thing. It's great. And if we could improve it 20%, 30%, how much more impact do you think we could have? So it's just starting to think like outside like the realm of what's been done and what could be shifted or changed to amplify it even more. Okay. So I want to leave you with these 2 questions. You have seen the missteps, you have seen where we are, the numbers, you've seen the future needs and these 5 strategies. So as we're wrapping up, we have a few minutes thinking about what and where do you want to focus on? Tammy just shared, like, I want to have a more cohesive approach to professional development. And where do you want to have impact or influence? What do you want to impact? What could you do today? 2 steps forward, maybe 3 steps forward. What are things that we could commit to today? And I won't call on you. You can just put it in the chat box. I won't put anybody on the spot unless you really want to. You can raise your hand too. What's coming up for you? What are your takeaways from this talk? I'm imagining we're having paragraphs of text getting typed right now. I wish they had the 3 dots. Kathy, I'm going to ask you what your takeaways are, because I know you've been listening closely.
Actually, I thought this was really great. I mean, I'm actually not in the corporate world, so of course I'm not going to be able to answer the questions like everybody else. But we do have Thomas.
It reinforces a large portion of what we're doing. Awesome. Talk with HR about ensuring the coaching options offered are in line. Awesome. Was anybody surprised? Anything kind of be like, whoa, did not think about that. I know we talked about the duct tape approach. Any stats kind of stick out as like, we got to do something?
I think the stats you gave us from the meeting you went to last week was impressive.
Yeah. And in fact, there was I know Tammy mentioned in their performance evaluation. So there is a shift happening now where people are getting away from performance evaluations on a rating scale. And what they're doing is moving it to more micro conversations. So when we see something, we say something, we put it into action so that it doesn't feel like a buildup. Because I don't know if anybody else remembers, like when you get a performance review, it's really stressful. Like even when you're doing a job, you feel like you're getting in trouble and going to the principal's office. So there are a lot of shifts and changes that are happening. Yeah, I hate doing them too. They're awful. So now it's just like, hey, I noticed that this happens, and here's what we can do differently. We're actually working with a team in Oklahoma now and completely redoing their review patterns and best practices, because it's like everyone hates it and it just kills people's self-esteem, and managers don't want to do it. So it's having that human focus of how do we actually like train and develop people in the way that we want to see them be, and how do we want to feel? Yeah, Jim, awesome. Avoid the one and done approach and push the learning journey. Maybe we don't need to push it. We can just kind of be like, hey, welcome to the journey. I think of it like Candyland, like where are the characters and things like that. And how do you have fun with it? Like fun is a big factor in what we do. And making sure that people are enjoying the process, because professional development shouldn't feel like a chore. Like it's something that is there for people, investing in them, helping them grow and enjoy what they do. So thank you so much. We got a couple more minutes. We have 2 more minutes left, but I love giving people their time back. If you want to dig in more on this, you can email me. You can check out our website. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I am the only Lauren LeMunyan in the world. So if there's any imposters, please let me know. If I have any doppelgangers, let me know that too. But would love to continue the conversation. I also have a podcast called the Spitfire Podcast. And thanks so much for your time. I hope that when we talk to each other next, you're telling me how many, where that percentage is in your pipeline, that you're at that 100%, and you were able to make those changes that you wanted to. But thanks to everyone so much, and have an amazing rest of your week. And you all take care.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Great presentation, as always. Enjoy working with you. Okay. All right. Oh, excellent. Excellent. We are finishing up this recording right now, and hopefully
we do have a question that just popped in. Do you want me to take it?
Okay, yeah, definitely. So, definitely.
While performance review cycles have a period, shouldn't conversations be constant in 360? And this is where coaches and mentors also come in. Yes. So we call this fast feedback. So fast feedback only works when you have 2 things, permission and safety. So you need to make sure that the person that you're giving the feedback to is in a safe spot, emotionally, physically, mentally, all those things. And that you are creating this opportunity of, hey, I noticed something. Can we have a conversation? So it's quickly done. And 360s only work when they're actually done in a way that supports that safety. So I've seen a lot of 360s get thrown back into people's faces, and it's not good. Yes, growth mindset is also key to this. So when we think about it, that also ties into the talent optimization. So when we make the person the hero of their own story, they then point forward of, we see you growing this way. Here's something we can work on together, so that they're co-creating their solution. If they are in a fixed mindset, you will then know, are they stuck or do they need some more time? And that will be the key of whether they have longevity in that role or if another decision needs to be made. Great questions, Jorge.
Perfect. Perfect.
And happy to chat more. If there's more questions, feel free to email me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I will be sending out a follow-up email. As I was saying, we will have a copy of the recording for everybody. So that should be on our YouTube channel, hopefully later this afternoon. I'm so glad you were all able to join us today. And thanks again, Lauren.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day, everybody.